But the other thing I think oftentimes happens with mental math, is that we underestimate the cost of some things. I'm going to do this with this money, and I'm going to do this thing with this money and this thing. So you've given it three different names, but they don't add up, and it ends up being a giant mess. But the other thing is even if you say, I'm going to do these three things with this $5,000, and it adds up to $5,000, and you're doing your due diligence, and then you go back to the drawing board and realize that thing that I wanted to do is actually about 40% costlier, more costly than what I was assuming it was going to be. And that trips up my husband every single time. Oh, I think that'll be about $400. And then it's six. And
Yep.
in the moment, it doesn't seem like that big a deal because, well, we've got this $5,000. So it's no big deal that it was six. I'm like, yes, but that extra 200 is now coming off of something else that you were thinking. So that can mess up that whole thing as well.
Welcome to the Christ Centered Stewardship podcast with your hosts, Maria Casillas and Nino Villa. Christ Centered Stewardship is a ministry of new money habits designed to equip believers to steward everything God has given them, including their time, talent, and treasure in ways that bring Him honor, glory, and praise. You can join our growing community on Facebook and submit your questions to podcast at newmoneyhabits.com. Now, to begin today's episode, here is Maria Casillas and Nino Villa.
Well, Maria, it is tax season. You know what that means? We're all getting tax returns. No, we're not, because that's
It's
not
like
the right
not all
term.
of us, but
Well, and it's not the right term. It's a refund. We're all filing tax returns, but refunds. So, want to talk a little bit about how to steward refunds and other financial windfalls, but really curious and want to kind of leverage some of your behavioral psychology expertise here and get into kind of the mindset of thoughts and beliefs that drive our behaviors this time of year when we're filing taxes and we're anticipating a tax refund, and just how we kind of either get really excited, really nervous, really depressed, all of the above.
yeah, 100%. And I think some of that comes from what you're thinking is about to happen and what are you anticipating is going to happen. I mean, I know just in our personal story, like our situation, it's always like my husband's always like, what do we have coming? What do we have to prepare for? So it's always just that unknown is it's anxiety driven, I think, and anxiety causing for a lot of people. So I think this kind of goes back to our knowledge is power. The more that you know about what's coming, the more you can kind of prepare for that. And so ourselves, it's funny because I typically in our relationship end up doing a lot of the paperwork side of things, and so I have the spreadsheets and I have all the receipts and I'm the one who kind of pulls a lot of that together. And then as I slowly but surely start entering that information, it's like, oh, well, at first it looks like, based on just your income, we're going to owe, $7,000 this year. And then as we start putting in some of the stuff that we've done, it slowly ticks down to closer to zero, which is what we always try to do. And then sometimes we also start to put in certain credits and it starts to tick up like, oh, now you have a little bit of money to spend. So it's like this, I don't know, wave of emotion and thoughts that starts one way and then ends up completely different. And so it's something that I think no matter where you are in this process, you're probably going to be able to relate to some of these thoughts that come up, because it's like, even if you end up with a refund, you might have thought you were going to have to pay in before the end, or vice versa. Maybe you thought we're getting some big refund and then all of a sudden you're like, oh man, like we got to pay in. So it can be all of these crazy thoughts that come in. But I will say that when we receive money, a lot of times, like if we are anticipating this windfall of cash, even though it's a refund, it's not just free money, there are certain things that come up. And I think one of the prevailing thoughts that we have, Nino, is it's free money. It's money we hadn't planned on, so it sounds like it's something that is free. And with that, if we haven't had some sort of plan in place, oftentimes it's like, oh, well, this might not happen again. Like, I'm not sure that I'm going to get this next year or I'm going to get this anytime ever in my life, which starts to be a little bit irrational. We can talk about that in a little bit. But that when we do that, when we have those thoughts, that oftentimes will lead to just, I'm going to use the word squander. We just kind of squander that money. It doesn't mean that it went to bad things. It just oftentimes means it wasn't really planned spending, and we didn't really put that into to make our goals happen, or to, even if those goals are, spending time with our family to do something fun. If we're not smart with the way we do that, we think, oh, well, it's gonna go wherever. And I think sometimes people just don't have a confidence about how to handle things. And so that belief of, you know what, this is not my thing. I don't know how to handle this. I don't know what to do with it. And so I'm not going to seek counsel with that. I'm just actually going to do whatever. I'm either going to throw it here and then we'll spend it as we need it, or whatever. But I think those three things are very, very predominant with how we start to think about things when they come to us, if we have not planned.
Yeah. The importance of planning, right? One of our core values is essential when it comes to a tax refund or any other type of windfall. I know for me personally, and then I saw it kind of confirmed time and time again with clients, is if I don't actually sit down and make a legitimate plan, and let's just, for argument's sake, use a nice round number like $5,000. Let's say I have a $5,000 refund coming. If I don't sit down and actually make a very specific plan for it, what happens is my mental plan and my mental math doesn't add up. Mm-hmm. Meaning, I hear $5,000 and I'm like, oh, you know what? The car needs a repair of $1,200. That's cool because I have $5,000 coming in. And it's like, yeah, you know what? Like, we have maybe a balance on that credit card that we want to get rid of, and maybe it's like $1,500. That's okay because I got $5,000 coming in. And hey, you know what? The family and I haven't been on a trip in a while, so we could probably set aside about $2,000 to do that. Well, let's just add those three numbers that I put together, and already I'm beyond the $5,000. And I thought I was alone. But as I said, as I started to sit down with clients and started to plan for these types of things, I found the same thing, is that as we make a mental list and we do mental math, we blow through that money very, very quickly. I think the word squander is an appropriate word there. It's not that any of those three things were bad. It's just like it went really quickly. And mentally, I probably didn't stop there. It's like, then there's other things. And it's usually a death by 1,000 cuts as well, meaning it's not one $5,000 expenditure. It's a bunch of small things that quickly add up to be more than what you're actually receiving. And so I think having a plan and putting that plan down on paper and saying, hey, what are the financial goals? Let's rank those in order of priority. And then we can ask questions like, am I going to eliminate 100% of priority number one before I even move on to priority number two? Or do I want a percentage of this $5,000 to go to priority one, a smaller but significant percentage to go to priority two, et cetera, et cetera? So I think sitting down and having a plan is super important.
You are speaking my language. I appreciate you. The other thing that mental math gets us messed up with, and I'm smiling because you said, I thought I was alone. No, I literally had this happen with a conversation with my husband like 2 days ago. So you're certainly not alone. But the other thing I think oftentimes happens with mental math, Nino, is that we underestimate the cost of something. So even if I like to talk to clients about naming their children. I mean, maybe it's the mom in me, but I'm like, if you have a child, you name your child something, but you only name that child something. You don't name that child 4 different names, right? I mean, you might have little pet names here and there, but that's it. And then you also only give each one of your children separate names, because if you named all of your children the same thing, it would be very chaotic in your home when you call one name and they all come running. Although that would be great, but they never would do that. They would all ignore it at the same time. Right. But the other thing is, if you call somebody by 5 different names, they never know who you're actually talking to, right? Like, that one's me. And it's very confusing. So when we do this with our money, and that's what you described, is you're like, I'm going to do this with this money, and I'm going to do this thing with this money and this thing. So you've given it 3 different names, but they don't add up, and it ends up being a giant mess. But the other thing is even if you say, I'm going to do these 3 things with this $5,000, and it adds up to $5,000, and you're doing your due diligence, and then you go back to the drawing board and realize that thing that I wanted to do is actually about 40% costlier, more costly than what I was assuming it was going to be. And that trips up my husband every single time. Oh, I think that'll be about $400. And then it's 6. And in the moment, it doesn't seem like that big a deal because, well, we've got this $5,000, so it's no big deal that it was 6. I'm like, yes, but that extra 200 is now coming off of something else that you were thinking. So that can mess up that whole thing as well.
Yeah. I see that so often with like travel plans. Right? And a lot of times people want to use a tax refund to do a little bit of travel. And time again, we collectively, you, me, the world, we all underestimate how much it's going to cost to travel.
Yeah.
And so I just did this with a client the other day where there's 5 categories that I like to walk clients through when planning for travel. And when we did it, they realized, oh, the trip that I thought was going to cost $700 is going to cost closer to $1,500. And we did that on the tail end of, they just went on a trip where we did this same thing. So they're still kind of learning, and good on them. They came back. I think they went a little over budget, but we're talking on I think it was a $1,700 budget. They went over by $150.
Oh, well, that's a greatly small percentage. Yeah.
Exactly. So in the grand scheme of things, it was like, look, see, we're getting better at estimating the true costs involved in travel. Same thing here, right? Put it down on paper, look at the actual costs of what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and you're going to have to make adjustments.
About 25 to 55%.
Right.
Just in case.
So our question for the coaches was, I found this in our group. It actually tied to this very thing. And so I think it gives us an opportunity to apply it to somebody else's situation here. It's an anonymous post, but I think it's funny that they're like, a hypothetical, what would you do?
Oh,
well, you already posted anonymously. Like, it's okay. Like,
yeah, asking for a friend.
Right. The post says, we don't have our taxes yet, but the estimator calculates us at a $6,500 refund. We need to get my husband's car fixed. That's going to be about $1,300. Already, here we go, right, Maria? Like, add about 25 to 40% in car repair costs. With the remaining cash, so the remainder would be what?
Well, let's round up to 1,500, so the remainder would be about 5,000.
Yep. Okay. So with the remainder, we could either do one of 2 things. They posted 2 things here. One, sell his car once it's fixed. We still owe on it. We would be able to sell it for pretty much exactly what is owed, and use the refund money, so the $5,000, to buy a smaller vehicle cash, using the almost $500 that they pay monthly. They pay $495 a month for a car payment, and move that forward to paying extra towards $22,000 in credit card debt that they say they have. So that's option 1. Take $1,500 to repair the car. Take the other $5,000 to buy a new car after they sell theirs for what they basically owe. Okay. And then reallocate $495 towards credit card debt. Or number 2, make a lump sum payment on the remaining of the remaining $5,000 towards credit card debt. And they assume that the lump sum would drive down their minimum monthly payment, which of course it would. By how much? That's not factored in here. Helping us to pay it off quicker by more of our payment among going towards the principal. So they already have an opinion. They think option 1 is the better choice, reduce debt and freeing up monthly expenses to continue to pay down the credit card debt. So I know that was kind of choppy and all over the place, but the bottom line is they have $6,500 coming back to them. They want to repair the car. Like we said, we're just going to round that up to $1,500 and then do what? Either try to sell the car so that they can free up the $500 a month and buy another car for $5,000, or take that $5,000 and contribute it towards their debt.
Well, I noticed that they think option one is the best option. And I just want to point this out. I'm actually curious from you. What do you think they're thinking? They actually said it right there. But what succinct way do you think that they're thinking that option one would be best? What's the reason?
That it's going to free up a monthly payment.
Yeah. So cash flow, right? That's
Yep.
the most succinct way I would have used that. They're looking at cash flow, which I think is actually quite wise to look at, rather than just net negative or positive, in terms of like net worth, or net debt, for example. But also, what is your monthly cash flow? What does that look like? And so I do appreciate that they're recognizing the power behind that and freeing up that almost $500 every single month. Because when you pay $5,000 towards a credit card, yes, it does reduce your monthly payment, but there's no way at a $22,000 debt that's going to reduce that by $500. There's no way. I mean, they probably don't even owe $500 a month on that credit card. Maybe four, maybe five. But when they pay that $5,000 off, they'll probably owe what, three?
Right.
Something like that. I don't really know the math, and I'm not going to pretend to know how they figure all that out, but that would be my guess. And so in that scenario, they're only freeing up $200 a month, and they're still having to pay their car, their
Yep.
payment, because they're not out of that yet. So I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of other people might be looking at the interest rates. So I don't know what their car loan is at.
I was just going to say, I think that's part of the mystery here, right? Is how much do you actually owe on the car? How much would $5,000, an additional $5,000 towards the car, how close would it get you to paying that off? Maybe not close at all. Maybe they owe $20,000, $30,000 on that car.
Yeah. In which case, putting $5,000 on it would be, I don't think, the wisest move, because that would move the cash flow zero. Unless you have enough to pay off the car, it does not change your payment. You can pay extra on the principal. It doesn't matter. And so it'll change how long you're paying on it, obviously, but it will not change that monthly payment. And so I'm guessing, that wouldn't make that much of a dent. And I say it because it sounds like once it's fixed, they'll be able to get pretty much what they owe on it. So if they owed just $5,000, they would not sell that car. I'm pretty confident. So yeah, I really appreciate the way that they're thinking through this. I find it funny that it's hypothetical, because clearly it's not.
Right. There's some specificity here
there's enough detail on there. The reason I brought up interest rate is because I think, at the beginning of this, we started talking about what are some of the thoughts that we have, some of the beliefs that we have that kind of drive our decisions. And I do believe that there's like a fear of high interest rates, and that can start to drive our emotional decision making. Mm-hmm. And when you take a step back, when you understand how interest is really applied, sometimes it takes away some of that fear or that emotional instantaneous thing. So for example, I was working with somebody who had a debt of approximately $16,000 on a credit card. It was sitting at a 0%, and then the 0% was about to expire. And there's this, it probably was going to go to, 29%, let's just call it really high. Okay.
Yep.
And so there was this emotional, like, oh my gosh, I need to transfer that. I'm gonna find a 5% or 3% balance transfer fee, and I'm gonna transfer that full amount, and it's gonna be on 0% for another, 18 months, let's say. Now, the old me would have said, "Oh yeah, like that's definitely what we want to do because we don't want 29%. Who the heck wants to pay 29%?" And nobody wants to pay 29%. Let's just throw that out there. Anyone who's listening, don't go out and get a 29% credit card. Please don't do that. Just remember, we are dealing with the mess that this person's already in. Okay, so it's not.
Right.
I'm not suggesting you go out and do this, but when we took a step back and found out that this person actually does have a windfall of money coming, it would not cover the entire $16,000, but it could cover a significant amount. So what we did was we started looking at how is that 29% applied. Well, you're paying 29% of 29 or $16,000 over an entire year. Right. And so figure out what that lump sum is and then divide that by 12 and see how many months will it take to pay to have this sitting there in order to make up for the balance transfer fee that will be inevitable. And when you start looking at that, you realize, oh, I've got like 3 months or so to make some decisions. And maybe I can pay that, $100 or $200 right now to transfer it over, or I can let there be a small amount of interest assessed in this month while I'm waiting for that windfall, and then I can pay it off then, and I'm paying less over the course of the time versus just having that emotional reaction. So I know that was a lot without actually seeing numbers, but it just allowed us to slow down and say, what is the actual cost of some of this, rather than just getting so wrapped up in high interest numbers and freaking out. So I'm guessing it's information that would be helpful for us, but also it might not be super helpful if our goal is actually to release some of that cash flow.
Yeah, and I think that's the point that I want to come back to. At New Money Habits, we teach 3 different ways to eliminate debt because we want to illustrate that there are multiple ways. There's no single right way to eliminate debt. It's about coming up with a plan to eliminate your debt that is going to benefit you. And so we teach the debt snowball, we teach the debt avalanche, and we teach the cash flow index method. And that's that method that you're talking about, where it's targeting a debt that would actually free up that cash flow. And so coming back to just, option 1 in this particular scenario looks like it would free up $500 a month in cash flow, while option 2 would free up some cash flow, but maybe something more like $150, maybe on the high end $200. And so it becomes a question about, is freeing up $150 to $200 of cash flow enough to kind of satisfy other things and help you to eliminate other debts? Because the other variable here is, you get rid of a car that you do know. You know the car, you know how it's been handled and maintained and all those different things. And you take a risk on a car you don't know. And so both of these scenarios do free up cash flow, one significantly more than the other. The other thing that I think is prudent enough to call out for our listeners is, just like we said before, when you kind of do some mental math and you make a mental list, it's always ideal, right?
Yep.
The poster says once it's fixed, we can pretty much get exactly what we owe. Mm-hmm. Everybody thinks that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is that actually true? Right? If you owe $25,000 on it, can you get somebody else to come along and pay you $25,000 for it? That sort of thing. So I think there's a couple of things to be mindful of, but I think the real key takeaway today is in freeing up cash flow. Which option would allow you to do that? Which option would allow you to do more of that? And the idea of how much cash flow do you need to free up in order to try to accomplish other financial goals, like eliminating, the rest of this credit card debt, and the amount that you would, whatever the amount is owed on the car, because that's part of your debt, but of course at a different interest rate.
Right. And I will also say that when we were saying, we were just going by what they were saying, that they'd free up about $500. But to your point, when they get another car, they probably should be putting a couple $100 aside every month for repairs, because it's anticipated that there's going to likely be some of those repairs. And so really it might only free up closer to $300 a month. And then the other variable that I want you to consider is your own behavior. When you have a pattern of behavior, it's a very difficult thing to change. And so there's something that got you into this amount of debt. And this is not a shaming thing, because I have been there, and it's sometimes intentionally I've been there, to be honest. This is just to go, am I able or willing or going to change those things that will kind of turn this around a little bit? And if the answer is no, then it doesn't matter how much cash flow you free up. You're going to end up using that cash flow into something else anyway. And so that's the other piece to just kind of keep in mind, and you better than we know you. But that is definitely a variable that needs to be considered.
Yeah. So I don't think we did it intentionally, but I think one of the things we did illustrate is there's a lot more nuance and a lot more to these types of decisions than just what is on the surface, right? And we believe that knowledge is power. I love helping people make informed decisions. And so I think there's more information to gather. I will give one other client testimony, just because it just happened this week. And it ties to a large windfall coming in. So a couple that we coach had a significant chunk of money coming in, and there are 4 significant debts. One is a rental property, 2 vehicles, and then a home equity line of credit. And with this significant chunk of money coming in, it was thought a couple weeks ago, hey, we'll pay off the rental, and then that will be free and clear, just an income producing asset. And then we'll take whatever's remaining, and if we can get rid of the HELOC, great, because it'll free up cash flow, and we won't have to pay that anymore every month anymore. And then it looked like it was only going to be enough to do those 2 things, and then it would be, hey, we'll just allocate more of the cash flow towards paying off the cars early. Well, as the money is in transit and we were kind of looking at this plan again, I said, hey, just so that we're making an informed decision, what if we flipped it? What if we went car, HELOC, then the rental? And if we can't, obviously we can't do all 4, but can we, let's look at the numbers, and it's oh yeah, we could pay off the 2 cars and the HELOC completely with a sizable chunk left over. And I was well, what if we took a big portion of that sizable chunk and we refinanced it? So interest rates are down from what you had before. You'd be contributing a nice chunk, and so you would be financing far less. And all of a sudden, we're talking about freeing up $1,800 in cash flow between the 3 things that are paid off, plus being able to refinance to a shorter term, better interest rate, and it's going to increase the cash flow between what the rental's bringing in and what they have to pay out on it every month. And all of a sudden, what they thought was the plan 2 weeks ago has been completely upended, and a better plan came to light as we were digging deeper and deeper and deeper. So I use that as an illustration to say, the more you stare at these things and the more you kind of map them out, and the more you talk about the nuances of them, a plan becomes clearer and clearer and clearer.
I agree. And I think that that's actually the real value of having somebody walk alongside you with that. Because, seriously, you mentioned the more you look at these things, and there's truth to that. There really is. But sometimes the more you look at them, the more your eyes cross and the fewer options you see. And so it is so nice to have a second or third party looking on with you going, oh, did you happen to see this? Because it's not that you're not intelligent enough. It's not that you're not even aware enough. It's usually just that you're so cross-eyed and tired that you just didn't see it. And you've got this fresh set of eyes that says, oh yeah, that's the first thing that pops out to me, whether it's because of my personality or because I'm just, well rested. And you're like, oh, man, how did I miss that? Well, it's okay that you missed it. Now you have somebody who's helping you see that, and it changes, like you in your illustration, the entire trajectory of the final plan. Like it's just like, and the outcome of that plan is going to be so much better for them than had you reversed that and gone with the original plan.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's the challenge for our listeners this week, is to, whatever financial situation or like financial decision you're facing, I want you to just slow down and take the time to look at it from multiple perspectives. Get it down on paper. Put your financial goals on paper, and then put a percentage by them. And make sure that the percentage totals 100%. But if you have 4 things, put a percentage by the thing that you think is the most important, whether that's 50%, 60%, 75%. It can be whatever percent you want. But if you're saying it's the most important, put a percentage by it. And then do that with the other things. And then if you are expecting a tax refund or some other type of windfall is coming your way, a bonus, whatever that might be, execute the dollars and the cents according to what you said the priorities were. And if you need help with that, by all means, schedule a free session with Maria or myself, and we'll just be an objective third set of eyes that just takes a look. See if we can see it a little bit differently.
That's amazing. I love it. Thank you so much, Nino.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Christ Centered Stewardship Podcast. Follow us on your favorite social media platform for more encouragement and support. And until next time, may the Lord keep you in perfect peace as you set your sight on Jesus.